Snow Treasure by Marie McSwigan. Chapter 12. Peter would have liked to tell Uncle Victor about the events of that day, but Uncle Victor and his boat were nowhere to be seen. It was strange, for Peter knew the Kling Pearson was somewhere in the Snake. But look where he would, all he could see was the black rushing water, the bobbing ice cakes, and the snow that covered ground and trees alike. It was getting late. They had to get to the Holmes farm before the blackout. It was 3 miles up the road from the beach. They'd have to hurry. It was twilight by the time the little band turned into the farmyard. Here they were on familiar ground. They'd passed the German sentries a second time. Again they saw the friendly captain who had turned aside his soldiers. He was returning with his troops, and he greeted them. "Did you have a good sled ride?" he asked in excellent Norwegian. Peter was sorry he wasn't allowed to answer him. At the farm kitchen, Michael pounded on the door. "Who is it?" a frightened voice called out. When Michael gave their names, there was a scuffle inside. They had to be recognized before the door would be opened. "But come in," the farm wife called, and Peter thought that for all the sadness of that terrible day, there was still a cheerfulness about the good brown face. That they had succeeded in carrying the gold past the Nazi sentries seemed to bring hope for Norway. "You had no trouble?" Her husband came out of a dim corner. Their supper was even now being dished into great earthenware bowls. Peter thought he had never smelled anything so good, nor had he seen anything for a long time as pleasant as the flickering, dancing light from the fire and from the candles on the dresser and great long kitchen table. "First they eat, Papa, then they talk." Fru Holmes and her servants bustled back and forth between the fire and the table. "Draw up now and eat, you brave children, you must be famished." Great steaming dishes dotted the red and white checkered cloth. Meat, potatoes, dumplings, cabbage. On the table there were also many cold foods, dried herrings, pickled eggs, mackerels, and great round sheets of the hard rye knäckebröd. Also huge mounds of iced cookies. The children fell upon the food like puppies around a basin of milk. It disappeared like snow when brought into the house. Fru Holmes and Marie, the servant, were kept busy walking back and forth between the table and the stove, refilling the bowls. Herr Holmes sat in a rocking chair, his pipe between his teeth. "So you got through all right?" The rough old farmer could not wait to hear their story. "Papa, let them eat," his wife kept urging. "When Marie and I are washing up, you shall hear." Ja, eat your fill," he rocked contentedly. "It's wonderful that we have boys and girls like these who can trick the Germans and not get caught," he chuckled. "Shh, Papa, spies everywhere," Fru Holmes cautioned. "Could be even here." Peter drew a long sigh of satisfaction. Never before had he felt so content. The warm food sent a glow to every part of his body. "We fooled them all right," he boasted. "They even turned out of our way. The captain said that they didn't want to spoil our sledding." With that, the four of them went into spasms of laughter. The tears rolled down Lovisa's face. Michael had to hold his stomach after all that food. "But what is so funny?" their host inquired. "Tell us so we can laugh too." "You fooled them, but what is funny?" The four of them started talking at once, but they kept interrupting themselves to laugh. They started to tell of Peter's ride down the mountain, head on in the path of the German army corps. Then they all had to stop because they were choking, so it was some time before poor Herr Holm could make out what had happened. But when he learned of the politeness of the captain, whose only fear was that he might spoil their sled track, he too shouted with laughter. They told him all that had happened, even to Lovisa finding the fallen trees. "But Uncle Victor's boat, it's not there." Peter was serious. "You find the trees but not the boat?" Herr Holm chided. "That's because your uncle wishes it so." "You mean he sailed away?" Nah. In the last war, things were hidden by what was called camouflage. What is called today, I do not know. You cover well with branches of trees or with snow or whatever. Even from the air you couldn't tell. Herr Holm would have kept the children talking all night if his wife had let him. To bed with them, their eyes are buttoned with sleep. Peter remembered being led from the house to the barn, but was aware of nothing else. The next thing he knew, it was morning. "Wake up, my little soldiers," the farmer was saying. "Hours ago I came by and did my milking, and you heard not a sound." Peter was grumpy at being aroused. "But would you sleep till noon?" her home asked in surprise. "You have work to do." Peter murmured, "Why do we have to be in such a hurry? We can get past those sentries any time." "Jah, if the snow holds," her home spoke anxiously. In alarm, Peter jumped up. "If the snow holds!"